Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we are so glad to have you here. New Jersey residents are bracing for higher electric bills. The average bill is expected to rise from $22 to $28 per month, putting added pressure on so many household budgets that are already feeling a strain. State Senator Burzichelli is standing by to tell us about what lawmakers in Trenton are doing to investigate and hopefully mitigate the skyrocketing energy costs. First, though, the ongoing repairs to a sinkhole on Interstate 80 in Wharton have been a major disruption and serious concern for commuters. Here to discuss the latest on the situation is Assemblywoman Aura Dunn, a Republican representing the 25th Legislative District in the northern part of the state in Morris County. Assemblywoman, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Assemblywoman, can you update us on the status of not just the repairs to the sinkhole on I-80 in Wharton, but what exactly are we dealing with? There's a report of upwards of 90 underground holes found under I-80.
Yes, and Laura. I just want to thank you for describing it as a disruption. It's actually upgraded from inconvenience to disruption. It really. I was out there on the site yesterday, and this area, which is in my district, has been immobilized due to this repair work. But yes, 90 voids need to be filled. There were 11 filled over the weekend. And the crews have been working diligently 24/7. So, they're as long as the weather cooperates, that will be completed in within the 3 weeks.
Yeah, now I grew up in Florida, so when you think of sinkholes, those are more naturally occurring. What we're dealing with here in New Jersey, it's because of human activity, right?
Yes, I mean the history of the interstate when it was first built. I think it actually was completed in the early 70s. So I'm hearing from a lot of constituents that live around the area that say, we know that this was built over a mine shaft. All I can say is right now, we've got to focus on the immediate needs. So we make sure they maintain to be safe and reliable. And thank God there hasn't been an accident or any serious incident. So we're glad that they were detected, and we will have to look into a longer term plan so we're not repeatedly here again. That the first sinkhole was found just a few weeks ago and 75 feet away.
Right, right. So can you talk a little bit about what the crews are doing to ensure that it isn't just a quick fix, but that the repair is thorough and long-lasting?
Yeah, so I've had a crash course in engineering and maybe even a little bit of geology these days. But what they're doing is essentially filling these voids called grouting to stabilize the roads. And how we just detected the 91 voids was through the seismic testing that occurred over the weekend. So look, again, we're glad that it's not news not that we didn't want to receive, but we're glad that we have this information so we can move forward and ensure safety. I like to say, we and we'll make a little pun here on the interstate. It's important to look in the rearview mirror, but don't stare. We've got to move forward and get these roads repaired and look at the long-term, structural needs.
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that speaks to all levels of government coming together, cooperating, and making sure that this is a priority, right? And the priority is attached to our investment in fixing these roads.
There have been some local officials who have been upset, or they've expressed they have expressed satisfaction, rather, with the due diligence of the repair crews. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I have to say that from the Commissioner O'Connor on down, the staff has been available to me 24/7, in relaying this information, keeping the public updated. So everyone has really been very transparent about what they're doing and communicative, and that's really so important. I like to say, communications can save lives. So we are in regular contact, and like I said, they've been working very hard, and the crews. I mean, this is a 24/7 project.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about The how long do you anticipate that there'll be the I-80 will be closed, given how complex this repair work is? And again, there are more holes. We have the abandoned mine shaft. What are you hearing?
Well, it started out as westbound, right? So there were some issues detected. We might kind of switch over to somewhere on the eastbound side. But again, I think, given their record and what they've demonstrated thus far with the 11 voids that were filled over the weekend, it could stay within that 3-week timeline.
You were talking a little bit about communication. Who all is being involved in this? Do you have geologists coming in? Like, who, it's more than just what you're seeing with the road construction, because there are concerns about the entire area's stability due to the past mining activities, more than a decade, no, decades ago, rather. So can you
That's
talk a
right.
little bit about that?
Right. It's one of the most traveled corridors, safe to say, in our nation. Right. So there are various stakeholders, like I said, and various experts, and I think the conversation has to continue, and we have to make sure everyone is at the table as we look at the longer term plan, because we're going to see the residual effects. Right. All of the traffic now that is diverted through the towns. That's taxing local county roads, requiring the deployment of local resources like police to do traffic control. The state police are out there, but really, when you get into the municipalities, it's going to require the support of the local PD as well.
Yeah, can you talk just a little bit about that, a little bit more in depth about that, and the economic impact really that this is having on local communities and law enforcement and resources?
I'm waiting. I'm in touch with the commissioner every day, but I'm also probably at multiple intervals throughout the day communicating with all the mayors of the surrounding towns. So I know they're monitoring it, and there will be, there'll be a number attached to it. It's interesting. You mentioned communications, and where does that fall? It's the local police that are really helping. I want to say even deal with the frustration that commuters are experiencing, making sure that there's no incident. People are growing impatient, right? We know when people grow impatient, they try to take things into their own hands and maybe deal with their own, maybe create their own detour and those things. So they are keeping the peace right now. So I want to thank them here in this public forum for all the work that they're doing.
I mean, this is a very heavily traveled road. People are concerned, they're worried. What if this happens again? Are there measures being put in place? Are there investigations going on right now to ensure this doesn't happen again? Because again, this isn't the first sinkhole on this stretch of I-80 where, again, those reports of other holes. What's being done?
Well, that is required, and I'm going to be calling for that to explore into that. Like I always say, you don't know where you're going unless you know what came before you. So really calling for an examination of that and addressing it. But right now, it's about getting people back up on the roads and keeping our economy going, because this is like I said, it's a major corridor for our nation. 159,000 travelers per day.
Yeah, and you're the 25th legislative district that represented also by State Senator Anthony Bucco. Can you talk a little bit about what your office is hearing from the public, from those people who you represent? How often are you going out there? What type of information are you able to actually see for yourself and relay to people who are calling? Because it's a major disruption.
Yes. What I saw, yesterday was most recent. I was out there, and it was actually during non-peak hours, but you wouldn't know that otherwise. So, Route 10 has really, really gotten the brunt of this, because that's the detour, and you just see cars and tractor trailers at a standstill. So commuters are having to plan, their adding additional time to get to work, and we know what kind of impact that has on a household and a family, trying to get their kids to school and picking them up in time. So it's really been I just want to thank the public for their patience, and they have been very appreciative of the constant communication, so they know what's happening. But there is concern about the like, when will this happen again?
Right, right. I mean, and really, what can you do to help ease people's minds who are really afraid that they might be driving and fall into a hole? That's what people are worried about.
Mm-hmm. Right. And we don't want to say, well, you just avoid the roads, and then we have the problem never goes away, and poor, town Wharton, that's really getting most of the traffic through their towns. I just have to know that we are monitored, that there's folks, not just me, but my colleagues as well, and other public servants, that we are on top of this. We're going to continuously monitor it and make sure that it is a priority. That we're, in making the proper investments in our infrastructure, which isn't always talked about lately.
Well, I mean,
Right?
that goes to a bigger discussion. The Transportation Trust Fund, our crumbling roads, bridges, infrastructure. On a good day, commuting in New Jersey is challenging. And you, as a commuter, build into it, there's probably going to be an accident, there's going to be road construction. And now there's this on top of it that wasn't planned for. And then those crews are having to leave perhaps other projects that they were trying to work on. So it really is compounding.
And we know, New Jersey does not have good standing nationwide into where we rate in our roads, the integrity of our roads, the reliability of them, even our bridges. So yeah, this has to be made a priority. And frankly, I don't think it really has. I mean, if we are listening to what's covered, and we have a gubernatorial race this year, and have folks talked about investing in infrastructure and making this a priority, and making sure that the federal government reimburses and provides their share in a timely manner as well. So I'm assured by the DOT that they're staying on top of that there's a whole process. But I'll be with them advocating for that as well.
Yeah, and are you finding that do you feel that there's a partisan element to this? You're a Republican, a Democratic administration. Do you feel like because commuters are commuters, Republicans, Democrats, independents, what have you. When it comes
That's
to
right.
your job in Trenton, when it comes to your advocacy and working with the DOT and with other agencies, are you getting a tug of war, push and pull?
Frankly, no. And perhaps Route 80 is our road to unity. How about that? I like you mentioned, everyone's a commuter. It doesn't see any party affiliation, and I really can't thank Commissioner O'Connor enough. I'm glad that I wish he was in the position sooner. Quite honestly, he was appointed, I guess, just in this last year of the governor's last year of his term, and he has the expertise that we need to address this problem.
Well, Assemblywoman Aura Dunn, we thank you for taking the time to talk to us and give us an update, and we hope that this is able to be remedied and people are back on the road with as little disruption as possible, as quickly and safely as possible.
Absolutely. Safety first.
Yep.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. With electric bills on the rise, State Senator John Burzichelli, a Democrat from the 3rd Legislative District in South Jersey, is taking action to address the issue. He's calling on the Board of Public Utilities, the BPU, for an investigation into the pricing models being used to set the rates. Senator, welcome. It's good to see you.
It is good to see you, Laura. Happy to be on.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of reporting that our energy bills could go up as much to $22 to $26 a month. Can you tell us why and what the heck's going on?
Well, first of all, there's a couple factors, electric bills reflect what people use, but the rates also play a very large part of it. And a big part of the rates is the cost to generate electricity and how those costs reach the consumer. So a number of us are asking the BPU to be aggressive and investigate our relationship with PJM, which is the regional grid. And by the way, they do a wonderful job moving electricity. They keep the lights on in the summer when it's very hot, but they're not doing so well in securing the best price for generated electricity. Because remember, we're in deregulated market, a little bit hybrid in spots. And for a number of years, this base auction for generation had served us well. It's not working at the moment. So the question is why? Part of it is obvious. Older generation plants have been retired. New generation has not come on. Most recently, we saw the president, as part of a campaign promise, put a stop to wind. That includes onshore and offshore. New Jersey was expecting in 3.5 to 4 years to have at least one wind farm operating. That would have been equal to a new nuclear plant. Right now, that's in jeopardy not to happen. When you take out those kind of pieces, eventually the people that are generating electricity are in a catbird seat and becomes a seller's market, and consumers are being asked to pay too much.
Can you just backtrack a little bit so our viewers understand how the rates are set, how we go to auction, the company that you mentioned? Can you talk just a little bit about the process, how it is now and how it's changing, and how these auctions set the standards that set the rates that dictate our bills?
Laura, I'm as confused by it as any other customer is.
Right.
I went from incandescent light bulbs to fluorescent light bulbs to LED light bulbs that were supposed to last a lifetime and don't last 6 months, and my electric bill is now the highest it's ever been. But some basic things here. Your electric bill is made up of a couple components. One is generation. Electricity has to be generated, and the second is delivery. Atlantic City Electric, which is the utility in my service area, and by the way, very good, very steady. They don't generate electricity, so they buy electricity from someone else, and then they send it to us, and they charge us accordingly. Well, there are auctions that take place 1 or 2 times a year. I'm not sure what the cycle is, where PJM helps coordinate and is part of getting these generators together and asking them to bid and tell us how much you're going to charge for electricity. It's supposed to be a competitive bid. So those people who are doing that now have got this marketplace skewed that they're able to demand a higher price than previous. Granted, everything's going up, but this has climbed at a rate that's just very pronounced. So you got a couple things going on. You have a loss of generation capacity because older plants like coal plants, older generation plants have been taken offline. New stuff hasn't come quick enough. We need a portfolio that's more robust, and there are problems getting onto the grid, like large-scale solar generation has trouble getting onto the grid through Atlantic City Electric's existing grid, which can't handle it. So you got all these pieces, and we're looking for an explanation from the legislative side, so maybe we can be helpful to break through this a little bit. But bottom line is, at the moment, there's not enough generation to make a competitive market that benefits the consumer.
So it's, as you're mentioning, the cancellation of the wind energy plants. That's impacting the prices, as well as the coal burning plants that was retired at the Jersey Shore. That was wasn't it supposed to be replaced by a natural gas plant?
That was supposed to be repurposed and retooled and become a natural gas plant. There was an outcry by those who didn't want the pipeline to be placed along the state highway that happened to go through the pinelands. And so that conversion never happened. And I don't want to be misleading about the wind stuff because I have a personal attachment to it. I've been around it since New Jersey made the decision to do that. That was still 3.5 years away. I just use that as an example that we have to have good planning. And that's one of the concerns here in our relationship with PJM. They're very good at managing the grid, but someone wasn't talking to our BPU, or our BPU wasn't talking to them to see what these projections would be on generation against demand. So this can't be a surprise to people that are operating the grid, meaning PJM, because they know what the future demands are projected to be, and they know what the generation capabilities are and where this comes from. Because remember, PJM, I think, could be made up of anywhere from 8 to 13 states. I always get that number confused.
I believe it's
so we have a
13.
lot of partners. Yeah, we have a lot of partners in this. So, West Virginia would like to burn more coal. Western Pennsylvania was burning coal, maybe not so much now. We don't burn any coal. But the point is, it's got out of whack somewhere. And the electric bills that are high at the moment, and it's wintertime, wait till the stuff starts to hit in August. And there's going to be another auction, I think, this summer. So Pennsylvania sued PJM to put a cap on what they would be willing to pay as the auction base. New Jersey joined that suit. Governor Murphy's was aggressive in that, and there was some concessions made, but it doesn't appear, there certainly isn't enough for today because these prices are based on the previous auction. But the next auction, I still think that price is probably too high.
Yeah, it's very complicated, a lot of layers, a lot of states working together. You've introduced the Senate Joint Resolution 154. What is it calling for? What would it do?
Well, it's calling for the BPA the BPU rather, I'm sorry, to formally investigate PJM and how they're managing this process, and to see if there's something that can be done better. So, we've got to go step by step here. We have to peel back this onion. And again, it's all going to come down to, in the end, it's going to come down to the cost to generate electricity and how that's being either manipulated, how that's being managed. I mean, other people are calling we should look at our utilities. Is the president of PSEG being paid too much? That's a whole separate topic. Bottom line here is, in bulk, we need to have ample supply of electricity at a price that people can afford. And I don't want to alarm anybody. We're not running out of electricity to keep your lights on. You may run out of money to be able to pay to keep them on, but there's enough electricity to keep them on. But it's not being generated at a price point that fits in with average households through New Jersey. And I want to say, if you look at headlines, Delaware, Connecticut, same issue, same discussion. Everyone's being squeezed.
Yeah. Have you identified any specific issues with PJM? And again, that's the regional pricing system, so the viewers can try to follow along as best as possible, that you believe specifically need to be investigated.
Well, PJM is the regional. They are the operator of the grid that serves us. And as I said, they really do a wonderful job of that side of the equation. But if you ever visited their facility, very sophisticated, very secure, very important stuff. But it's almost as if they're too far out of the mainstream to understand what's going on the other side, on the dollars and cents side, particularly on generation, where they're asked to conduct these auctions to get the very best price. And the idea for having a large auction was putting states together and regions together so you have more muscle and get a better price in buying electricity being generated. Something's gone wrong here. And I suspect it's because the generation side has contracted and there's less competition, so it becomes a seller's market. And someone should have been, there should have been greater awareness brought to our BPU and these states in advance of this to tell us we had reached a tipping point and it was going to create these high prices. That didn't happen, or maybe it did and it didn't reach us. But I wasn't, it seemed it's more of a surprise than not.
Yeah, so are these pricing models affecting the average New Jersey consumer more so than in other states? Again, these models, these management companies, 13 states, is it affecting New Jerseyans more when it comes to their monthly utility bills?
From what I can glean in published reports, particularly Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, all seem to be in the same discussion. A little less out of Pennsylvania. Can't tell you why, although Pennsylvania led the charge. Governor Shapiro led the charge to bring suit for PJM and how they're going to conduct this next auction. So I would say Pennsylvania's in the same boat, and that's really as far as the reach that I look at every day is publications out of those states. So we're not unique, and it's not good news. So is deregulation working at the moment? Is the auction model working at the moment? Clearly, something is broken, and it may be a little bit before it can get fixed. If it simply comes down to supply and demand, there's more demand than supply, and when that's the case, the person who's doing the supplying gets to name the price.
Because you're working with other states, how much can the New Jersey legislature, how effective can the legislature be in beefing up that argument? Again, you're working together with other states, so you aren't alone, so you have more power, more juice, more energy, so to speak. Not to play on words there, probably a bad pun. But what can the New Jersey legislature, how effective can they really be? Because you're saying, we already know this is winter, our prices are going to be higher, but watch out for summertime, this could get really bad.
Well, it is going to, because the demand for electricity is just going to grow as the weather gets warmer, because, we have become spoiled as a society. When I was little, we were lucky to have a box fan in the window. Now, air conditioning is expected to be in most, if not all, residents where feasible. So the demand of electricity is just going to continue to grow. As far as the legislature being effective, we don't set these prices, but we have a large voice. And New Jersey as a market is 9 million people. We're a big market. We're a big part of the PJM with respect to their base of marketplace. So we have something to say. Now, from a legal standpoint, and I'm not an attorney, I'm a lawmaker, and I'm a consumer. The president has declared a national energy emergency. I'm not sure what that means, other than the fact at the time of declaring that, he shuts down the potential for generation of wind, both on land in places like Texas and the Midwest, and offshore like in New Jersey. But the point is, if we're in a national energy emergency, are there additional powers available to our governor, for example, to set aside auction results or to step in with a larger hammer to get better prices under certain circumstances? So the legislature will lend its voice to those kinds of approaches. But we don't set the price. Board of Public Utilities sets the rates based on applications made for rates. And that's where we'll get involved in our relationship with our BPU and offer direction and raise questions.
The final question, are these increases inevitable? And how are your colleagues across the aisle, you're a Democrat, how are your colleagues across the aisle on the Republican side working with you to address this? Because everybody's got the bills to pay.
Well, everyone has the bills to pay, and curiously, it certainly isn't a partisan issue, but I recently was successful in moving a bill through the Senate, which is called Energy Alert, which requires utility companies that have smart meters to let customers know by either text or email 10 days into the billing cycle and then 20 days into the billing cycle how their energy bill is doing for that month period. So you don't get at the end of the month simply sticker shock on the bill coming. You get notice 10 days in how you're doing. Maybe you can make some changes. Surprisingly, that did not draw bipartisan support. I don't know why.
Well, Senator Burzichelli, we thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. We appreciate it.
Laura, thank you very much. Always available.
All right. And that's going to do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thank you so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.